Welcome to another episode of the West Coast Offensive. I am your host, Kyle, joined by our forever guest, Drew Ager. This week, we're talking playoff predictions for the NBA. We'll cover Eastern Conference and Western Conference. Then we're calling our shot with the rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. Who will have the best career? Here are our opinions there. But first, let's head back to our NBA segment, the Full Court Press. With the NBA playoffs coming up soon, we're making our predictions for them. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference, and we're going to split it. Drew's going to call his shots for the Eastern Conference, and I'll say if he's wrong or right, and he'll do the same for me on the Western Conference. But let's start East. Drew, starting with this play-in tournament, we have Indiana, Washington, and Boston and Charlotte. Who do you have going on, making it through right now? Those are the seeded teams. We're going off who is projected right now in those seeds. That could shake up, but we're just doing it how it is right now as of May 11th. We have 9 seed Indiana, 10 seed Washington, 7 and 8 Boston and Charlotte. So Drew, take it away.
Yeah, well, in the Eastern Conference, especially with the play-in teams, I'm not expecting that to shift around a whole heck of a lot. I do tend to agree with Luka Doncic and LeBron James and that the play-in is stupid. However, it's what we have, right? I'm not really expecting any of these teams, with the exception of the Los Angeles Lakers, who I don't think would be the 7th seed, except for, horrendous injuries, which is a whole another can of worms to open, right? They're the only one of any of these teams that I think has any sort of shot to actually contend for a championship this year, but that's in the Western Conference. So we're going to stick with the East. So the 9th and 10th seed, we had the Pacers and the Wizards. The interesting thing with the Wizards is that any given game they can go off, right? I mean, Bradley Beal can drop 50, Russell Westbrook can, get a million rebounds and stuff, because that's what you want your guard doing, right? I'm expecting Indiana to pull it out marginally. I think they have a much more complete team than what the Wizards do there. But I don't think it matters a whole heck of a lot right here, because I think that team is still neither of those teams do I think is going to end up advancing into the playoffs. I expect Boston, even with losing Jaylen Brown for the rest of the season, I still expect them to be able to beat the Hornets to solidify the 7th seed. In the Hornets, I just have to say, kudos to Michael Jordan in rebuilding that team. Gordon Hayward revitalized his career this year. Based on a pure value signing, might have been the best free agent signing in the offseason. LaMelo Ball, even though he's out now, looks like a real player. So good things with Charlotte going forward. And I'm just going to pick them beating Indiana then. So Indiana beating Washington and advancing to play Charlotte, the loser of Boston and Charlotte. And then I think that Charlotte's going to win. So I think that the order is still going to be the 7th and 8th team in the seeds are going to be the ones that will be advancing. Once we get there, though, I have in our next round, the 76ers absolutely destroying the Charlotte Hornets. I think that's going to be a 4-game sweep. I have the Bucks right now. They are matching up in the number 3 seed. It's going to be what I think that the 76ers are most likely still going to have that number 1 seed, but the Bucks and the 76ers, the Bucks and the Nets keep on going back and forth between the 2 and the 3 seed. And that could have some real implications of who's going to have home court during that matchup. Right. So I have Milwaukee versus the Heat. Milwaukee really does not want to play the Heat. I get it. I still think I think they're a much better team this year with Jrue Holiday and know what they have to do. So I think they're going to beat the Heat. And then I think the Nets are going to roll the Celtics. Last matchup we have here between the 4 and the 5 seed. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's the Knicks and the Hawks. I actually think that the Hawks they're a significantly more fun team to watch. And I think that they have more talent. I still have no idea how the Knicks have the 4 seed right now. So I'm actually going to go with the slight underdog here. I think Atlanta's going to pull that one out in advance. So when we look at this now, we have Philadelphia will be going up against the Atlanta Hawks, and we have Milwaukee going up against the Brooklyn Nets. I think, and this is probably more of my bias as a Milwaukee Bucks fan than anything else. I think that the Brooklyn Nets, when healthy, you can make the case that maybe they aren't the most complete team in the NBA, but their ceiling is higher than anybody else's, with 3 Hall of Famers on that roster, 3 guys that can score from anywhere on the court. But I don't think they're going to be healthy. they haven't had that chemistry together. When you look at the Clippers last year, it took them time to put it together, right? LeBron has never won the first year in any place that he went. Miami was the second year. Cleveland was the second year. Lakers was the second year, right? It takes time to develop chemistry. It takes time to get healthy for KD, who seemingly can't stay healthy like whatsoever now, which is a real huge concern. So as much as I like Brooklyn, their lack of team chemistry, and frankly, without James Harden on that court, we can talk about KD being the best player or second best player on the planet. Their record when it's Harden and Kyrie is still pretty good. Their record with KD and Kyrie is like 500, right? Like it's not that impressive. So, and knowing that the Nets have no real defensive matchup for Giannis, I'm pulling the trigger here. I'm going to say the Bucks are going to win in the semi-conference round, go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the 76ers are going to roll Atlanta, 4 or 5 games in that series to advance. And so then we're going to have Philadelphia versus Milwaukee and the conference finals. I think this is going to be a tremendous matchup. These two teams do not like each other. There's a little gamesmanship going back and forth in some of these matchups. Giannis sitting down on the court and stuff, and a couple other things that have happened in previous matchups this season. I think as much as I want Milwaukee to be the team, I think it's a coin flip. Screw it. I'm going to say Bucks win. Bucks will advance. I think that they have learned so much in the past 2 years. Budenholzer will make the adjustments that he has to make. And I'm going to say that the Bucks win in a 6 or 7 game series over the 76ers to advance to be the representative in the finals from the Eastern Conference.
All right. So your pick is Milwaukee. All right. I mostly agree. I swap Brooklyn with Milwaukee though down the stretch. That's where I differ. Is just instead of Milwaukee winning, I have Brooklyn going on, and I don't know if they beat Philadelphia right now, but it wouldn't surprise me them ending up in the finals. I think that's very likely as of right now. But hey, your points were good. It makes sense. We'll see. But there are our Eastern Conference predictions. All right, now looking at the Western Conference in the play-in tournament at 9 and 10, we have Memphis and San Antonio. And then in 7 and 8, we have the Lakers and Golden State. There right now are all in the play-in tournament. I like what Memphis is doing. I'm going to have them going over San Antonio. Again, the 9 and 10 I don't think really matters just with who's there and how Memphis is playing. I don't think San Antonio really has a shot beyond that. I think they're just happy to be here. So I have Memphis going on. Then we got Lakers and Golden State. I think this is going to be a great series if it holds, and I hope it does hold, just because I think it's going to be more exciting to see the Lakers kind of have to play their way back into the fold after all the injuries. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get a 6-7 game series, if this is the series we have. But ultimately, I'm going to have the Lakers move on, just especially if they get LeBron back. It's just it's hard to bet against them. I really want to. I want to say Golden State's going to pull it off just because of Steph Curry's season so far. He's been playing out of his mind. He's been playing like an MVP. So it'd be fun just to see them overcome that. But I'll have Lakers move on. And I think if I'm reading this right, Golden State could still win it, right? Because the loser in the 8 seed, the 7-8 seed goes on to play 9. All right. So I'm going to have Golden State beat Memphis then. So I'm going to have Golden State and Lakers be those seeds with 7 and 8. It's the same thing on your side. 7 and 8 goes on, moves on there. And then we have Utah then going up against Golden State and 1 and 8. I'm going to have Utah win. Golden State did win last night as of May 11th against Utah in a really good game. I don't know how long they could do that, especially in the playoffs without Clay. Obviously, this Golden State team is good, and they'd be really phenomenal with Klay Thompson, right? But I don't think they can get far deep into the playoffs. But so I'll have them go down to Utah. Then we have our 4 and 5 seed with Denver and Dallas.
One thing I was just going to mention too. So with the play-in games though, these actually aren't full series. This is the one thing that I kind of like question about it, because I think basketball is a game where you kind of need to have a series to find out who the better team is. I think anybody can win any given night if you get hot from 3, right? Especially in today's game. So the 7th and 8th seed, when they play, it's just one game. The winner advances, and then the loser faces in a 1-game matchup versus the winner of the 9th and 10th game. which I think makes sense in the sense that if you were asking the 8th seed presumably to play 2 additional series
Yeah,
compared to everybody else, like you're really lengthening out the playoffs in
that's
stuff.
true.
However, the fact that, yeah, I mean, these are sudden death games, which the NBA doesn't really have. So maybe this is a whole new, atmosphere that
Yeah.
crops up. But that was just something I wanted to
Yeah,
throw in
no,
there.
that's a good distinction because then I'm looking at that Laker Golden State one, and they could easily flip flop so
Yep.
easily just because
Yep.
it does on a night, just any other night, right? Okay, good to know. Okay, it still holds because I both have Lakers and Golden State going on. So, with that, uh, Denver Dallas. I'm excited for this matchup. I'm excited for playoffs to get back and actually start watching basketball a little more. I've been watching Trailblazers, but you know, I kind of don't care because the games don't matter yet. I want this playoff. So I think this would be a good series. I'm gonna ultimately have Denver go up. Even without Jamal Murray, they've been on a tear. They got a little bit better since he went down, and it's kind of like how you explained the Philadelphia Eagle effect with Nick Foles. You know, your starter goes down and you rally behind the guy who's replacing him. It seems like that's what's going on. So I'm gonna have them move on over Dallas in a good series. Then we got at the 3 seed the Clippers and 6 seed Portland. Portland will make this fun. Dame is scoring points right now. Their offense is clicking, but they have one of the league's worst defenses. So they've been better over the last couple of games, but their backs against the wall, and that's when that team actually performs well. Dame is an underdog, so I don't have them going on any. I don't have them going past this first round. So I have the Clippers pull out, but man, would I love to see him win this one? But I don't see it with that defense. Then we got the Phoenix Suns against the Lakers. This is a matchup I don't think the Lakers want. I think Phoenix is dangerous. Full strength Lakers, I think they would pull it out, and I think they're. I want to have Phoenix win this one. I think Phoenix takes down take down Lakers right here, just because injuries, lack of playing time, kind of the same to your reasons with Brooklyn. Even though the Lakers are a very similar team to last season and they got pretty much better, shed off some dead weight, I still think Phoenix is gonna take this one. So I'll have Phoenix. I think that's the upset there, even though they're the 2 seed against 7. So then going forward, we got Utah against Denver, and then Clippers with Phoenix.
So like I agree with almost all of that, and I think that it's really interesting with Phoenix and the Lakers because I think that it's kind of two sides of like the same coin. That
Yeah.
we're like one I think is like a really good regular season team with very little playoff experience outside of Chris Paul, right?
Yeah.
And Chris Paul has only once ever gotten out of the second round of the playoffs. Now you can put that on Doc Rivers and Blake Griffin, but that he's arguably the MVP this season if you look at how the Suns turned around. But I do question how good they're going to be in a playoff circumstance. So I put that solely on how healthy are the Lakers, right? Like if LeBron, he said he's never going to get back to 100%, which is super scary. But if he can be 90% and AD kind of rounds into form, yeah, I still think that they win that series. But right now, looking at how the Lakers are performing, it's super hard to say that they're gonna, beat the Suns with any confidence. So I think that's a good pick there.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So Utah number 1 against Denver, and I'm gonna go with Utah. I wouldn't surprise me Denver making this a series, but I like what Utah's doing.
I'm really excited for the series just based on what we saw last year in the bubble between Utah and Denver. That 7-game series, even without Jamal Murray.
I have Utah winning that one, and then we have Phoenix and Clippers. I'm gonna go with Phoenix just because I don't. Just based on last season with the Clippers, I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, you're obviously a little better this season, but I'm still not confident in that team. And I do like what Phoenix is doing. I think the matchup between Utah and Phoenix would be fun. I think it's a surprising Western Conference Finals, but hey, let's get it. Let's go there. So, and then ultimately, I'm gonna have Phoenix going to the finals. Let's do it. Let this in the matchup with Phoenix and Utah. I'm gonna pull out with Phoenix going on and going into the finals representing the Western Conference.
So yeah, I don't entirely agree, but I really like the rationale and stuff. It would be really fun to watch that team end up making the finals there. I think the Clippers had a lot of lumps last year. They were not mentally prepared to be in the bubble, not just from Lou Williams getting chicken wings at a strip club and stuff, but like Paul George just talked about being anxious and like being depressed inside it. Doc Rivers said they weren't there from the start. And then when you say all that, and then you look at how well they performed. I mean, they didn't perform up to like expectations, but like, okay, you still took the Nuggets 6 games and stuff. Denver and Utah, I think, is a situation where if Jamal Murray was healthy, I would 100% take Denver. I think those two teams are so evenly matched in the way that Jokic goes up against Gobert. So I could totally see Donovan Mitchell, especially as a playoff performer, taking that series over. I think that one is a total coin flip. I would take the Clippers over the Suns because I think they are going to grow from last year's experience, and they added playoff Rondo. So I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. And so I would probably have the Clippers going. Like, I think that it could be really interesting if we have the Clippers and the Bucks in the finals, just because it's these teams that for like last year really fell short of what their expectations were. But I wonder if now going into the playoffs as an underdog kind of shifts that narrative around them and is able to kind of give them that edge that they need to really stay competitive. But overall, yeah, it would be super fun if the Suns ended up making it to the finals.
Yeah, it's definitely true about Clippers and Milwaukee. They're kind of like, no one's talking about them. I'm kind of like, whatever.
Everybody bailed last year, and sure, but I think like also if we think Michael Jordan, yes, during a crazy
bubble.
year, like Michael Jordan lost to the Celtics over and over again. He lost to the Pistons over and over again, and then he broke through and won effectively 6 straight championships, right? So it takes time. Yeah. He was 26, 27 when he won his first one, right? Which Giannis is only 27 right now. So just
I was like, here it is. You're sounding like a little Milwaukee fan, a little getting a little impatient over there, huh? Yep.
Well, and the other thing that's different too is that I think both of these teams learned what they needed to improve on based on last year's playoff performance. For the Bucks, it's let's get rid of Eric Bledsoe, who consistently shrinks, get a point guard who's a better defender, get PJ Tucker so we can actually switch everything. They have substantially better three-point shooting. The 76ers, or I'm sorry, I don't know why they came up. The Clippers, and getting Rondo, they have a real distributor at point guard, which they did not have before. You get rid of Montrezl Harrell, you get rid of Lou Williams, but you bring in players that complement what Paul George and Kawhi Leonard do a whole lot better. So I think both of these two teams are much more well-equipped to be successful in the playoffs this year than they were last year, even just from a coaching attitude perspective of, they keep on building a wall around Giannis. They're going to force Paul George to shoot. Like, how do we figure these things out?
And there you have it. So on the Western Conference side, my pick and my prediction is that the Phoenix Suns will go on and represent the Western Conference in the finals. And then on the Eastern Conference side, we have Drew's selection of Milwaukee going on to the finals. So as a whole, our predictions are Milwaukee, Phoenix, finals. I think Phoenix is a surprise, but I'd be down for it. Get Booker in finally. But when we come back, we'll move on to the NBA or NFL, talking about rookie quarterbacks and who will have the best career. All right, welcome back. The draft is now over. We're about over a week away. Now we're looking at these rookie quarterbacks. We're going to focus on the top 5 taken in the first round. The rest I don't care about because we're not going to see them play for a while. But we have the top 5 with Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, Fields, and Jones all going in the first round. And we are going to say who has or who will have the best career in the NFL based on whatever we think is relevant to them. This is us calling our shots on them right now. So Drew, let's start at the bottom. Number 5, who's your, out of the first round quarterbacks, who was 5th best career out of these 5 quarterbacks?
Well, in real fast too, I just want to paint the picture of like, so the reason that I think this is relevant, right, is that 3 years ago, we had 5 quarterbacks go in that first round, right? So you have Baker, you have Sam Darnold, you have Josh Allen, you have Josh Rosen, and you have Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson is the guy that was taken fifth in that group. And while you can argue maybe the Jackson isn't, the thrower, the passer that some of these other guys are, Lamar Jackson has been to the playoffs every year. Lamar Jackson has an NFL MVP on his mantle. Lamar Jackson just led his team to the playoffs in a division ahead of the Cleveland Browns, right? So like he has a lot of things going for him. I thought Sam Darnold was the best prospect coming out, but because of the team he was on, didn't turn out to be that great. Josh Rosen was taken way ahead of Lamar Jackson, turned out to just be terrible. So with this, the guy that I think is going to have the worst career, and frankly, I'm not sure where I would have him, ranked, probably, third or fourth overall, but Zach Wilson with the Jets. First of all, he's like a MAGA supporter, so he kind of drives me crazy. But like,
why you gotta ruin him for me?
Sorry. The New York Jets have given me zero evidence or confidence over the years that they have any ability to protect, to develop a quarterback, and frankly, to have any type of competence as an organization from the ownership down. I will say, so you bring in a new head coach. Good start. Joe Douglas, the GM for the first time in a long time for the Jets, actually looks like he knows what he's doing, and he's building that offensive line up. So that's a very good sign as well. I also think Zach Wilson, though, is going to be thrown into a lion's den after being in the Mountain West Conference, and that jump up from going from the Mountain West Conference at BYU, where your team is substantially better than everybody else, going into the AFC East, an extremely competitive division with the Dolphins defense, the Bills defense, and the Patriots. Like, I don't think Zach Wilson is going to be uber successful, especially because I think he's going to have to start really early on. A lot of these other quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, even hypothetically Justin Fields, these guys are going to get some time to develop in Zach Wilson is not going to be afforded that same luxury. And I'm worried about that for him going forward.
I agree, kind of saying that he's going to be thrown into the pit, right? Wilson. I do like I do like the news story with Robert Saleh's first practice. He stood in the back at the end of it, like in his normal spot, and then he realized he was the head coach and he had to run up front to give the end of practice spiel. Just gets kind of funny news coming out of New York, right? Coach doesn't know he's coaching. I think it's a funny story. I like what Saleh's doing, and I think in a division, you're right, in a division with those teams, and especially Belichick, who knows how to play against and scheme against rookie quarterbacks, Wilson,
yep.
The odds are he's not going to look great. However, I'm looking at what they're building. Like I don't think he's gonna fourth or I have him fourth best quarterback. Or hold on, we're talking career, not how fast they'll be. Not this season, right? That's the distinction, career. So I'm gonna erase saying that he's 4 or 5, because I think this season he'll be like 4 or 5 best quarterback out of these rookies if they all start, which they're not going to. But if they all did, I have him like 4th or 5th, just because of the situation in New York. It's not going to be right away. He's going to need some time. He's not going to look great, but I still think he's going to have a decent career. And I do like what's going on in New York for the Jets. I do think they're building something bigger, and we're showing the first time the GM looks like he's doing what he's doing. They've learned after the Sam Darnold. I love what they've did in the draft, and I think with the new head coach in Saleh, as long as that coach can be solid, which I think he will be, I think he's the guy to turn it around. I think he has a quarterback in Wilson. I think this is going to lead to success. Will he be? I have him 3rd best quarterback, best career out of these quarterbacks. That's where I'm going to place him. Wilson specifically there.
Yeah, I think this is the one that we disagree on the most, because I didn't even love Zach Wilson all that much as a prospect. Like, it made no sense to me why he was going number 2 overall. And I like what Douglas is doing from the standpoint of, if you are going to move off of Sam Darnold, I loved everything that he did. Mm-hmm. I probably still would have kept Darnold, trade that number 2 overall pick for a ton, right? Yeah. And then try to build that team up. I completely agree that the Jets are going in the right direction. I just have no confidence in that franchise. So it's hard for me to think like, okay, is he going to be the best quarterback since Joe Namath? I mean, maybe.
There's a far and few in between the quarterbacks there. I messed up that phrase.
Yeah.
Anyways, so for my fifth, I'm gonna have Mac Jones. He's my fifth. He'll have the fifth best career, just because I do think he can find success with Belichick. I really do, but I just don't think he has what it takes fully. I'm looking at these other guys. I think they are significantly better and more equipped, especially with Trey Lance being able to sit for a little bit behind Garoppolo and learn. I think that is going to elevate him in the long run for his career. I have questions about Justin Fields, and I almost put him fifth just because of landing in Chicago. I don't think that's a fantastic. I like it for Chicago. For him, I don't know if that's where he wanted to be. I think he's a little upset. And we'll see how that all plays out. But for right now, I'm gonna have Mac Jones gonna have the fifth best career. He'll be a serviceable quarterback, but outside of that, Belichick loves him. He'll probably get a couple great seasons out of him, but overall, I don't think he's gonna be much more than an average quarterback.
Yeah, I mean it's really tough to tell. I think with Belichick, because with quarterbacks that he's drafted over the years, I mean, yeah, you get lucky with a Tom Brady in the sixth round, but you had no idea what you had there. Jimmy G in the second round looked to be a very good pick at the time and for the first few years, but he can't stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
And was probably still, a solid pick, but a lot of other guys like, Ryan Mallett and stuff like just never really worked out. Jacoby Brissett, I guess was, decent. But they're at this point where I think that he's essentially going to get the whole year to sit unless something happens with Cam or he's just really not performing well. I think that he's the guy that can run the same offense that Brady ran. Like his skill set is the same to Brady's to like a T. And so I think that he has a really good shot to be successful in a Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick led scheme. I think when you look at the entire class, it's kind of tough to say because now I'm putting more of a focus here on I think the franchise and what I think of them more so than like just the talent. So I have more confidence. I think that the Patriots are going to be able to develop Mac Jones. And when I look at that offense, they have surrounded talent around it from the offensive line to the skill positions now, something that they really haven't had in other past. And I also think that Bill so desperately wants to win a championship without Brady. I think they're going to do everything they have to win there. So I think he could ultimately have the second or third best career just because of going to the Patriots. It also wouldn't surprise me if he just never reaches that next level. I do think that just based on a pure talent scheme, he has the lowest ceiling out of this bunch. But I think when you look at who Bill Belichick is, I don't think Tom Brady necessarily had an elite ceiling, and they were able to get a ton out of that, right?
For
so
sure.
That's the one that I kind of had, I think, the biggest question mark on, because it's I think the best spot, the best fit, but also the guy that I had the least confidence in with being able to succeed. Just when you think about the fact that his two receivers, his left tackle and his running back all went in the first round as well. Like he was playing on an all-star team. It's going to be different.
Yeah, and that's where I knock him a little bit because he did play with so many like fantastic players, right?
Sure.
So your fifth is Wilson. So who's your fourth then? Because
yeah, so this is where I think it gets tough. I probably go Justin Fields here. I really like Justin Fields, and I want to be clear too. I don't hate this spot for him, right? Like I think you and I might differ on this a bit. This is more about me liking the upside of some of these other places and liking their spots more. But you have Matt Nagy, who's a really creative offensive coach. This is the best quarterback talent that he's had around. You have a good tight end. You have Allen Robinson, Tariq Cohen's coming back. Like you have a good enough offensive line. So you have some skill positions there. Also, Justin Fields doesn't need to start right away, but he's totally capable of starting right away at the same time. Not to mention, they have, out of all of these teams that we're mentioning that brought a quarterback on, with the exception of maybe the 49ers. If they're fully healthy, the Bears have the best defense in this bunch, right? So I think that gives them a real advantage to where, you're probably not going to have Justin Fields throw 40 times a game. They're probably really going to limit that to do like a Baker Mayfield thing. Like, look, run the ball, pass it 20 times a game, and let's see if we can win this game with, defense and not turning the ball over. So that's the one where it's like, I like him and I like Matt Nagy. It's also the Bears, right? And they haven't had a Pro Bowl quarterback since 1985. Like that's crazy. So ultimately, that's, I think, why I slide him into fourth. But I still like Justin Fields, and I love that pick for the Bears overall going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I have him at 4, just with how everything's shaking out. Yeah, I pretty much mostly agree. It's just question marks about Chicago, and their quarterbacks and Nagy's offense. It's been it's shown capability there, here and there, but overall we'll see. And yeah, I just think Fields going to be 4 for me too. And then my 3 was Wilson. That's where I put my Zach Wilson. So 3, that's for me. So
yeah, and this is where I think it's going to come down to like really a handful of things. I like my third spot. I'll put Mac Jones here. And then this will just lead into the second spot. I guess too. And it's hard because I do think that Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, potentially the best quarterback prospect since John Elway, right? Like, this guy is off the charts in like all of these things, and people have viewed him as the number 1 prospect since he was like 16 years old, right? And I think he has a great head on his shoulders too. You have Urban Meyer as a head coach. I have no idea what that means. Nick Saban was a mediocre NFL coach. Steve Spurrier was a mediocre NFL coach. Chip Kelly was a very mediocre NFL coach, right? So like some of these guys work short. Pete Carroll works, but also Pete Carroll had a losing record his first 2 years in Seattle until he got Russell Wilson, right? Yeah. So I think Urban Meyer is going to do a great job in drafting and player development and acquiring a lot of these guys that he's had so much time watching the past 2 seasons. At the end of the day, though, they still don't have that much talent surrounding him. Yeah, you have a couple backs and you have DJ Chark and stuff, but you still don't have a ton of talent. Your defense is not that good. The Players Association has told players not to go to Jacksonville because it is so horrendously run. Like when the narrative is out on your team for either Jacksonville or Cincinnati, really those being the worst two, is people being like, do not go there. It is not a professional organization. That's a really bad sign going forward. And Steve Kahn, their owner, I don't think gives a shit about winning Super Bowls. I think the only thing that he cares about is making money. And when he says that I'm going to bring in Urban Meyer, we're going to draft a Trevor Lawrence, but I'm going to be the one who's in charge of like player personnel, then, congratulations, you're bringing Tebow and stuff. I'm just not, as much as I'd love Lawrence, and I think that you can look at Andrew Luck as that comparable player who took a terrible Colts team, just god-awful Colts team that once they lost Peyton Manning, won like 1 game, right? Then they get Andrew Luck, and he immediately takes them into the playoffs. Maybe Trevor Lawrence can do that. But also, if we look at Andrew Luck's career, he started off great, then got hit a lot, and then retired way earlier than people expected. So How successful was Andrew Luck's career overall? When compared to RG3, yes, he had a way better career. But when compared to other quarterbacks in his era, I'm not sure where you would rank him in there. So although I think that Trevor Lawrence is the most talented by far of this entire bunch, Jacksonville makes me so nervous that they're going to screw everything up. So I'm going to put him in my second spot, I guess. And I'm kind of surprised that I'm putting him that high. It's really him, you mean breaking the curve of how Jacksonville is.
You said you are surprised you put him that high. Is that what you meant?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'm
It
putting him
felt like you
second
were.
best.
It felt like you should say you put him that low. That's what I just wanted to clarify, and that's my assumption. That's assumption from my part because I agree. I have him as second overall just because he is such a great prospect, and I was going to make the same point with like Andrew Luck too. Yeah, great prospect, did great player, but ultimately what happened? No Super Bowls, and he retired early, which I don't knock anything against him retiring early. That's a personal choice for health, and I understand that. Uh,
Hmm.
but overall, what does that mean? And especially, yeah, Urban Meyer, like the Tebow signing is, I don't get it. Like sure, it, I don't get it. I can't even justify it to me. Just because there's so many other players who deserve a shot. Younger players who can actually play, and then you have a media guy like Tebow. It just doesn't make sense to me. I get the connection between the coach and him, but what is that going to do for the locker room? What does that do for the team? Like, what
No,
to me, it's just
it's a
showing
huge distraction for
100%.
at best a third string tight end.
Yeah,
Right.
it just doesn't make sense, and that just shows me. And this is something we said when he was hired there, and we talked about our coaches and who's going to be the best coach and who has the best fit. It could work in Jacksonville, but if the owner is the one making the personnel moves, if he doesn't let Urban Meyer do what he can do, it's not going to be great. And I think that's what we're seeing with all these signings and kind of with the writing on the wall here. So, yeah, I'm going to have him in second for those reasons, just because until Jacksonville can show me, what they've shown so far in this offseason doesn't say they're changing much other than they have a new coach and a new quarterback, which cool. That's awesome, but I don't think it's going to do anything. So yeah, Lawrence is going to be number 2 for me, and that makes Trey Lance number 1 just because, man, sit behind Garoppolo, learn from Shanahan. Shanahan builds a nice system for Trey Lance during this year, figure out his skill set, and then next season let him loose. I think he just the ability for him to be able to sit and wait is going to help him tremendously, and I hope they let him. I don't think it's going to hurt him if he starts this season at any point. I don't think it's going to, but I would prefer to have him sit behind and get a year of a year of practice and just sitting behind Garoppolo, and then they can move on next season from Garoppolo, officially make Lance their official starter, and move on from there. So yeah, I just think the situation, the talent with Lance is primed for him to have a great season, great career.
Yeah, well, and for Jimmy too, for Jimmy G too, I would just say like, hey, if he balls out this year and wins the Super Bowl, it's not like they're not bringing him back next year, right? Yeah. Like, so and I love what he said as far as he's going to help Trey Lance too. He said that like, Brady helped me, which is weird because I didn't really. I didn't hear that side of things, but I think that was 2 years into it when Bill wanted to move off of Tom. Yeah. But it's a situation where I think you have probably the best offensive coach in the NFL. You have guys like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, amazing running backs, and in the best running system in the NFL. You have a great offensive line, all pro left tackle, and then one of the best defenses when healthy in the entire NFL, right? Yeah, you're going to an extremely tough division, but I think especially when you look, like you said, Kyle, he has the chance to sit and learn, and he's coming from a situation similar to Zach Wilson, where he was. You could make the argument that the difference between NDSU and their competition is greater than the difference between Mac Jones at Alabama and his competition. And you could say that same thing about BYU, right? Like, so that's something that does give me a little bit of pause and a little bit of concern. But the fact that they're going to have so much time to develop this guy, the fact that they're going to have so much time to build an offense around him, and that offense is still pretty young. Like, they have paid a couple of their running backs. They signed Kittle, but their receivers are still young and cheap. And since they're going to have Trey Lance on this rookie deal, they can move off of Jimmy G for almost no real cap hit. Like, they're in a really good spot moving forward right now. And so, yeah, because of all of those things, I'm not. Trey Lance is probably the guy that I had, ranked, third behind, Justin Fields. I do think that he has the second highest ceiling, though, outside of Trevor Lawrence, and the fact that he's going here, I think it's just the best spot. So yeah, we'll end up seeing here, but there's no reason to me that he shouldn't be able to find success in San Francisco unless you really just can't stay healthy or you can't play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you flip our 3 and 5 picks, Wilson and Jones, and we picked the same. We got Lance number 1, best career coming forward. Lawrence number 2. Myself is Wilson. You put Mac Jones at 3. We both agreed 4 is Fields, and then of course I had Mac Jones at 5, or I had Mac Jones at 5, and you had Wilson at 5. So,
well, and one thing I would just add too is that even us, I feel like we're overly optimistic about this, even though that's, I feel like we like weren't like in talking about a few of these things. But I mean, statistically, one of these guys is just gonna suck, right? Like one of these guys is gonna be Josh Rosen. Yeah, at least one is just going to be hot ass garbage. One of these guys is probably gonna be like an all pro. So like who is going to be like the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or and Baker are kind of in that mold. Sam Darnold's kind of that guy that you don't effectively know what he is, but definitely not all 5 of these guys are going to succeed. Chances are what's going to happen, I think, is that you have 1 or 2 guys that are really, solid Pro Bowlers. You have 1 or 2 guys that are kind of mediocre, average, and then you have 1 or 2 guys that like flames out. And so looking at it from like that perspective, I kind of like Mac Jones more and more, just because his ceiling, even though it's so low, he has a much higher floor than some of these other guys have. And so we'll end up seeing there. But if I'm a betting man, Zach Wilson is the guy. I'm like, you are the Josh Rosen of this bunch. So we'll see.
Jones is the Josh Rosen of this bunch, but we'll see. Yeah, we disagree on those 2 quarterbacks for sure.
Absolutely.
Can't wait till he wins something, Rookie of the Year. Yeah.
If Zach Wilson wins Rookie of the Year, I will do something that I don't want to do. But he has the most punchable face I have ever seen since
that's fine.
John Walker.
You could have a punchable face. As long as you could play. I don't care. And I think he can. Anyways, all right, that's our rookie quarterback predictions there for their careers. We're calling our shots there. Trey Lance is the guy. That's our pick there. He's going to have the best career. With that is going to conclude another episode of the West Coast Offensive. You can catch us weekly, dropping episodes on podcast services such as Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. And on Apple Podcast, you can leave us a 5-star review. That just helps us get discovered by more people, so it really, really, really does a lot. So please go and do that if you would. We would appreciate it. Be sure to also head to our YouTube channel where you can check out the full video version of our podcast. We're going to start uploading those weekly as well. And we'll also make some shorter clips from the podcast and some clips that are not going to be on the podcast, but will just be on our YouTube channel. The last one was about the Aaron Rodgers trade rumors. I did a video about that. So we're going to start rolling out some other content like that. So be sure to follow us and subscribe to that YouTube channel to never miss out on those videos and that content. Another way to stay up to date with what we are doing on the West Coast Offensive is to follow our social media pages. You can head to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and just search up the West Coast Offensive and follow that page or account with that bear logo. The links will also be in the show notes of the episode and on the YouTube channel description if you're watching there. So just click on those links and make sure you follow us there. Also, if you wish to support the show, you can go to Buy Me a Coffee and simply buy us a coffee as a way to support the show as we continue to grow and expand what we are doing. Thank you for the people who have already done so. And if you wish to do so, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/the West Coast off. That is buymeacoffee.com/the West Coast off. Head over there and you can support us that way if you wish. We really appreciate it. This is just something we do for fun, but hey, if people want to support us, we'll keep producing more and more content if people want it. So please go there and support us if you wish. We appreciate it as well. And with that, that is going to be it. Thanks for listening to another episode. You can catch us next week with a brand new episode. This week, I am also going to tour the Raiders Stadium, Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. So I might do a video this week, just kind of talking about the stadium, but we'll see. So check out stay tuned to the YouTube so you don't miss out on that. If it probably will come, I'm gonna want to talk about the stadium. We'll see if Drew wants to listen to me rant about it. Not rant, just talk. Anyways, I'm just rambling because it's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, stay safe and be kind to others.